Before we begin our work with polynomials in Chapter 5, Section 2, it's important to know how to classify polynomials, so that way you know what we're talking about when we use certain terms. One way to classify a polynomial is by its degree, which you've already talked about how to find the degree of a monomial. And the other way is to classify it by its number of terms. So let's first look at how to find the degree of a monomial. Here's a list of monomials. If you recall, the degree of the monomial is the sum of its exponents. So the exponent here is 1. So the degree is simply 1. And here the degree is 2. And here I need to have the sum of its exponents. I have 2 plus 1, so the degree is 3. Here, don't be fooled. The exponent on x and y are each 1, so the degree of this monomial is 2. So you all recall how to find the degree of a monomial. Let's talk about some other types of polynomials. Let's figure out why we call it monomial. It's called monomial because the other way to describe a polynomial or to classify a polynomial is by its number of terms. So if a polynomial has one term, it is referred to as a monomial. If a polynomial has two terms, well, let's look at some down here that have two terms. Whoops. Down here at the bottom of the page, you can see some polynomials that have two terms, x minus 2, and 4x squared y to the 7th minus 376xy to the 49th. Each have two terms. If a polynomial has two terms, it is called a binomial, like a bicycle. Okay, and these prefixes are not too hard to figure out. And you can probably imagine what's coming next. If it has three terms, it is called a trinomial. And there's an example of a few trinomials. But what I want you to notice is that the degree of each of these is different. Here I have a group of binomials. And here's your group of trinomials. And really, one other thing I forgot to mention is that anything more than 3, 4 or more, is simply just referred to as a polynomial. So let's take a look at the degree of a polynomial other than a monomial, which you've already discussed previously. If you're looking at a binomial, it might be difficult sometimes because you've got more than one term to choose from. The degree of any polynomial can be found by taking the degree of its largest term. So the degree of each of these terms here are 1. And what's the degree of a constant term? This is a trick here. The degree of the constant term is actually 0. If you can imagine an imaginary x to the 0th here, the degree of this term is 0. So the degree of the largest term here is the degree of the binomial. So the degree here is 1. Here I've got the degree of this term is 9, but the degree of this term is 50. So the degree of this binomial is 50. And looking down here at these three trinomials, the degree of the largest term here is 2. So the degree of this trinomial is 2. And the highest power in this one is 3. So the degree of the trinomial listed as 3, and this last trinomial also has a degree of 3. Its largest exponent is, of course, 3. I'm going to end my video after we recap that there are two different ways to classify a polynomial, and that is by its degree or by the number of terms it has. And I've had many requests from most of you to be funny in my videos, so here's my sad attempt at being funny. Here's a joke for you. What do you call a hungry parrot? Polynomial.